The smell of fried chicken and fresh cornbread drifted through the front door of the small diner on Jefferson Street. Inside, a woman in her early 40s wiped down the counter with practiced efficiency. Her name was Riley Thompson, and this place was everything she had worked for. Riley's Southern Kitchen had been open for 6 months now, and every single day felt like a small victory. The walls were painted a warm yellow, and old photographs of family gatherings hung in simple frames. The tables were mismatched, bought secondhand from estate sales, but each one was spotless. 20 years in the Army had taught Riley that details mattered, and she ran her restaurant the same way she had run her unit overseas. The diner sat in a neighborhood that had seen better days. Boarded-up storefronts lined the street, and trash sometimes gathered in the corners where the wind pushed it. But Riley had grown up just 3 blocks away, in the house where her grandmother had raised her. When she retired from the military last year, coming back here wasn't just a choice. It felt like a mission. Her grandmother, Big Mama Louise, had been the one who first taught her to cook. Those Sunday afternoons in a cramped kitchen, learning to season greens and fry chicken just right, had been the happiest memories of Riley's childhood. Big Mama Louise had always said Riley should open a restaurant someday, somewhere people could feel at home. When she passed away 2 years ago, Riley had made a promise at her funeral. She would make that dream real. Now here she was, serving the same recipes in the same neighborhood to people who needed it. The menu was simple but good. Fried chicken, mac and cheese, collard greens, black-eyed peas, cornbread, and sweet potato pie. Nothing fancy, but everything made with care. And the prices were fair. Riley knew what it was like to count every dollar. A regular customer, an older man named Vincent, sat at his usual spot by the window. He came in every morning for coffee and grits, and he always had stories about the neighborhood from 40 years ago when things were different. Riley liked listening to him. He reminded her of the veterans she had served with, the ones who carried whole lifetimes in their eyes. Her daughter Tasha worked the weekend shifts. At 17, Tasha was tall and quick with a smile that could brighten the whole room. She was saving money for college, dreaming of becoming a nurse. Riley watched her daughter refill water glasses and joke with customers and felt a surge of pride. This diner was giving Tasha something too. A work ethic. A sense of purpose. Something to be proud of. In the kitchen, Riley's best friend Keisha managed everything with loud efficiency. They had served together in Iraq, both as combat medics, and had seen things that still showed up in nightmares sometimes. When Riley had called Keisha about the restaurant idea, her friend had driven 12 hours straight to help. That was the kind of friendship the military created. You didn't leave your people behind. The lunch rush started around noon. Construction workers came in for the daily special. Office workers from downtown drove over, because the food was better and cheaper than anything near their buildings. Families came in with kids who did homework in the corner booths. Riley had made sure there was free Wi-Fi, and she never rushed anyone. Every Tuesday, veterans ate free. It was Riley's way of giving back. Vincent always came on Tuesdays with 3 other older veterans, and they sat at the big table in the back, swapping stories and drinking coffee for hours. Riley never charged them a penny, even though Tuesdays were usually slow for business. Some things mattered more than money, but running a small business in this neighborhood came with problems Riley hadn't fully expected. There were gang tags on the wall outside that she had to paint over every few weeks. Kids sometimes caused trouble in the parking lot. And then there were the Vipers. The Vipers were a local gang that controlled several blocks around the diner. They were into everything: drugs, stolen goods, protection rackets. Riley had first heard about them from Vincent, who had warned her quietly one morning that they would probably come around asking for money. She hadn't believed it would really happen. This was 2025, not some movie from the 80s. But Vincent had been right. The first time they showed up was 3 months ago. 4 young guys had walked in during the dinner rush, looking around with that specific kind of swagger that Riley recognized immediately. The leader was a kid in his mid-20s who called himself Snake. He had cold eyes and an expensive watch that didn't match his torn jeans. Snake had sat at the counter and ordered coffee he didn't drink. Then he had explained, very politely, that businesses on this street paid a monthly fee for protection. Just $200. Small amount. Kept trouble away. Riley had looked at him steadily and said no. She didn't need protection. She could take care of herself. Snake had smiled, but it hadn't reached his eyes. He said she should think about it. Bad things happened to businesses that didn't have protection. Accidents, fires, break-ins. Riley had kept her voice calm and professional, the same tone she had used with insurgents at checkpoints overseas. She thanked him for stopping by but repeated that she wouldn't be paying. Then she had stood up, all 5'8" of her, and waited until they left. Keisha had been furious. She wanted to call the police right away. But Riley knew how these things worked. The police couldn't do anything unless a crime actually happened. And getting the cops involved might just make the Vipers more aggressive. The second visit had come a month later. Snake had brought more guys this time, and they had been less polite. One of them had knocked over a napkin holder. Another had made comments to Tasha that made Riley's blood boil. But she had stayed calm, repeated her answer, and watched them leave. The third visit was 2 weeks ago. Snake had come alone this time, and he had been direct. Pay up or things would get ugly. He wasn't asking anymore. Riley had still said no. Now as she wiped tables and chatted with customers, Riley could feel something building. She noticed the way gang members watched the diner when they walked past. She saw the tension in Vincent's face when he warned her again to be careful. She caught Tasha glancing nervously at the door whenever it opened. Riley had survived 3 combat deployments. She had been in firefights in Fallujah, where bullets had snapped past her head. She had treated wounded soldiers under mortar fire. She had earned medals for valor that sat in a drawer at home, because she didn't like talking about them. She wasn't about to let street thugs destroy what she had built, but as the Friday evening dinner rush began and the diner filled with families and laughter, Riley felt that old familiar awareness creeping back. The same heightened alertness she had felt before missions overseas. Her instincts, honed by 20 years of military training, were telling her something. Trouble was coming. Soon. She just didn't know it would be tonight. The dinner rush was in full swing when they walked in. Riley was pouring coffee for a regular customer when she heard the door slam open hard enough to rattle the bell above it. 6 of them, Snake in front, wearing a dark hoodie despite the warm evening. The others fanned out behind him like they had practiced it. Riley recognized 2 from previous visits. The others were new faces, younger, trying to look tough. The diner went quiet. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Even the kids in the corner booth sensed something wrong and stopped coloring. Riley set down the coffee pot carefully and turned to face them. Her heart rate didn't spike. Instead, something else happened. Something she hadn't felt in over a year. Her vision sharpened. Sounds became clearer. Her breathing steadied into a rhythm she knew from 100 dangerous situations overseas. "We're closed," she said quietly. Snake laughed. It wasn't a friendly sound. "Closed? I see plenty of people eating." He walked further into the diner, his crew following. One of them, a kid who couldn't be more than 19, bumped into a table where an elderly couple was eating. Their plates rattled. "Excuse me," the old woman said, her voice shaking. The kid ignored her. Snake was looking around the diner with exaggerated slowness, taking in the family photographs on the walls, the clean tables, the customers who were now frozen in fear. "Nice place you got here," Snake said. "Be a shame if something happened to it." Riley's hands were steady at her sides. She was calculating distances, exits, threats. 20 years of training didn't just disappear because you changed into civilian clothes. Her brain was already running scenarios. 6 hostels. Approximately 15 civilians, including children. Tasha was near the kitchen, frozen with a pitcher of sweet tea in her hands. Keisha was visible through the kitchen window, her phone already in her hand. Good. She would be calling for help. Vincent was sitting at his usual table with 2 of his veteran friends. Riley caught his eye. He gave the smallest nod. He understood what was happening. "I told you before," Riley said, her voice calm but carrying authority. "I'm not paying you anything. You need to leave now." Snake's expression changed. The fake friendliness dropped away. "You don't get it, do you? This is your last chance," he nodded to his crew. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion for Riley, though it was actually just seconds. One of the gang members grabbed the edge of a table and flipped it. Plates and glasses crashed to the floor. A woman screamed. Another one shoved a young father who was trying to shield his 2 kids. The kid who had bumped the elderly couple grabbed the old man's arm and yanked him out of his chair. The old man, whose name was Theodore and who came in every Friday with his wife, stumbled and fell hard on the tile floor. That was when everything changed. Riley moved. She didn't think about it. Her body just responded, muscle memory taking over from hundreds of hours of combat training and real-world experience. She crossed the distance to Theodore in 3 quick steps, putting herself between him and the gang member. "Back off," she said. Her voice had changed completely. It wasn't the friendly restaurant owner anymore. It was Sergeant First Class Thompson, the woman who had commanded soldiers in combat zones. The gang member reached for her, probably planning to shove her aside. Riley caught his wrist, twisted, and used his own momentum to send him stumbling into a table. He went down in a crash of dishes. For a moment, everyone froze. Snake's face twisted with rage. "You just made a big mistake." That's when they all moved at once. Another gang member came at Riley from the side. She grabbed the coffee pot she had set down moments before, the one that was still half full of hot coffee. She swung it in a controlled arc, not trying to hit him with it but forcing him back. The message was clear. She was armed and she knew what she was doing. "Everyone out the back," Riley shouted. "Kitchen exit now." Keisha was already there, holding the kitchen door open and waving people through. Tasha stood frozen and Riley could see the fear on her daughter's face. "Tasha, help get people out." Her daughter snapped into action, grabbing the arm of a terrified mother and guiding her and her kids toward the kitchen. Riley kept her attention on the threats. 2 gang members were trying to circle around her. Snake was reaching into his jacket. Vincent and his friends were helping Theodore up, moving him toward the exit. The diner had erupted into chaos. People scrambling for safety, chairs scraping, more dishes breaking. Riley grabbed a heavy cast-iron skillet from a nearby table. Someone's unfinished order of fried chicken scattered across the floor. The weight of it felt solid and familiar in her hand. She had trained with improvised weapons in close-quarters combat courses. A skillet would work just fine. One of the gang members pulled out a knife. Riley's training immediately categorized the threat level. Blade approximately 6 inches, right hand aggressive stance but uncertain movements. Not military trained. Probably never been in a real fight. She didn't wait for him to make the first move. She feinted left, and when he followed the movement, she stepped in close and used the skillet to knock the knife from his hand. Then she shoved him hard toward the door. He stumbled out onto the sidewalk. "Riley, look out."
Keisha's voice from the kitchen. Riley spun.
Another gang member had grabbed a chair and was swinging it at her. She ducked under it, feeling the air move above her head, and kicked out at his knee. Not hard enough to break anything, but enough to make him drop the chair and hobble backward. The diner was almost empty now. Most of the customers had made it to the kitchen and out the back exit. But Tasha was still there, helping an older woman who was moving slowly. And Snake was pulling something from his jacket, a gun. Time seemed to slow down again. Riley's training screamed at her. Active shooter situation. Civilians still in danger. Daughter in the line of fire. Multiple options played out in her head in microseconds. Snake pointed the gun at Riley. "Everybody stops right now or somebody gets hurt." Riley raised her hands slowly, the skillet still in one. She kept her body angled to shield Tasha and the elderly woman. Her voice was steady. "You don't want to do this. Right now you're looking at vandalism, maybe assault. You pull that trigger and you're looking at attempted murder. Life sentence. Is that really worth $200 a month?" Snake's hand was shaking slightly. Good. He was emotional, not thinking clearly. Riley kept talking, her voice calm and reasonable, the same tone she had used to talk down aggressive situations overseas. "Everyone's already seen your faces. There are cameras in here. Police are probably already on their way. You can still walk out of here and this stays small, but if you hurt someone, especially with that gun, your life is over." She could hear sirens in the distance. Someone in the neighborhood must have called the police. Snake heard them too. His eyes darted toward the door, then back to Riley. His crew was getting nervous, shifting on their feet, looking at their leader for direction. "This isn't over," Snake said. "Yes, it is," Riley replied. For a moment, it could have gone either way. Then Snake lowered the gun slightly and Riley saw her opening. She moved faster than Snake could process. 20 years of hand-to-hand combat training compressed into 2 seconds of precise action. She closed the distance, used one hand to control the weapon, pointing it away from everyone, and used the other to strike at Snake's wrist. The gun clattered to the floor. Snake tried to fight back, but Riley had already shifted her weight. Using a technique she had practiced thousands of times, she took him down to the ground, controlling his movements, her knee on his back. Tasha, get that woman out of here. Now. Her daughter finally got the elderly woman through the kitchen door. The remaining gang members stood frozen, watching their leader face down on the tile floor. You all need to decide, Riley said, breathing hard, but still in control. You can run right now or you can stay and explain to the police why you're here. The sirens were getting louder. 3 of them bolted for the door. The other 2 hesitated, then followed. Riley stayed where she was, keeping Snake pinned, counting the seconds until help arrived. The gun was 3 feet away on the floor. The diner was destroyed. But everyone was safe. That was all that mattered. The police came through the door with their weapons drawn, shouting commands. Riley stayed exactly where she was, hands visible, knee still on Snake's back. She called out clearly that she was the owner, and that the situation was secure. It took a few minutes for everything to get sorted out. The officers handcuffed Snake and 2 of his crew who hadn't run fast enough. They collected the gun as evidence. They took statements from Riley, from Keisha, from the customers who had stayed to give witness accounts. The whole time, Riley felt like she was watching it all happen to someone else. By the time the police finally left with Snake and his guys in custody, it was almost 9 at night. The diner looked like a war zone. Tables overturned. Broken plates and glasses everywhere. Food smashed into the floor. The yellow walls she had painted so carefully now had scuff marks and holes where furniture had hit them. Riley stood in the middle of it all, just staring. Her hands had started shaking about 20 minutes ago and hadn't stopped. Tasha sat at one of the few remaining upright tables, her head in her hands. Keisha was sweeping up glass with mechanical movements, not saying anything. Vincent had stayed. He walked over to Riley and put a hand on her shoulder. You did good, kid, he said quietly. Everybody got out safe because of you. Riley nodded but couldn't find words. She had held it together during the crisis, stayed calm, did what needed to be done. But now that it was over, the reality was hitting her. Her dream, her grandmother's dream, was destroyed. The diner she had poured every dollar and every ounce of hope into was wrecked. How am I going to pay for all this? She said, her voice barely above a whisper. Vincent didn't have an answer for that. Keisha stopped sweeping and came over. She wrapped Riley in a tight hug, the kind only a sister in arms could give. Neither of them said anything. They didn't need to. Tasha finally looked up, tears streaming down her face. Mom, I was so scared. Riley crossed the room and pulled her daughter close. I know, baby, I know. But you were so brave. You helped people get out. You did exactly what you needed to do. What are we going to do now? Tasha asked. That was the question, wasn't it? Riley looked around at the destruction. She had maybe $3,000 in savings. The insurance deductible alone was $5,000, and she wasn't even sure the policy covered gang violence. Even if it did, insurance companies took forever to pay out. And how long would the diner have to stay closed? A week, 2 weeks, a month? She couldn't afford to close for even a few days. The rent was due in a week. She had employees counting on their paychecks, suppliers to pay, and now there would be repair costs on top of everything else. I don't know, Riley admitted. I honestly don't know. They cleaned up what they could that night, mostly just sweeping up the worst of the broken glass and getting the food into trash bags before it attracted pests. Then Riley locked up and they all went home. Tasha fell asleep in the car on the way, exhausted from fear and adrenaline crash. Riley carried her inside and tucked her into bed like she used to when Tasha was little. Then Riley sat on her couch in the dark and let herself cry. She didn't sleep much that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Snake pointing that gun, saw Tasha frozen in fear, saw her grandmother's recipes scattered across a dirty floor. At 3 a.m, she got up and made coffee, sitting at her kitchen table and trying to figure out a plan that didn't exist. Maybe she would have to close. Sell the equipment, break the lease, find a regular job somewhere. The thought made her feel hollow inside. Her phone buzzed. A text from Keisha. You awake? Yeah, Riley typed back, me too. Can't stop thinking about it. They texted back and forth for a while, not really saying anything important, just being there for each other the way they had been in Iraq when the nights got long and the memories got loud. The next morning, Riley went back to the diner. She had to. She needed to see it in daylight. Needed to make a real assessment of the damage. When she unlocked the door, she half expected it to look better than she remembered. It didn't. If anything, it looked worse. She was standing there wondering where to even start when she heard someone knock on the glass door. She turned to see Vincent and his two veteran friends, along with about a dozen other people from the neighborhood. Riley unlocked the door. Confused. "We're here to help," Vincent said simply. And just like that, people started flowing in. Some brought cleaning supplies, others brought tools. A woman Riley recognized from the church down the street brought trash bags and rubber gloves. A young guy who worked at the hardware store brought wood to board up a broken window temporarily. "You don't have to do this," Riley said, overwhelmed. "Yeah, we do," Vincent replied. "You stood up for all of us last night. You think we're going to let you deal with this alone?" They worked all morning, sweeping, scrubbing, hauling out damaged furniture. Someone brought sandwiches for lunch. Someone else brought cold drinks. People Riley barely knew showed up to help. The mechanic from 2 streets over. The lady who ran the nail salon. Teenagers from the high school Tasha attended. By afternoon, the diner was clean, even if it was far from fixed. The broken tables and chairs were stacked outside. The walls were cleaned, though they still had damage. The floor was spotless. It looked empty and sad, but at least it didn't look like a disaster zone anymore. Riley was thanking everyone when a woman in a business suit walked in. She introduced herself as Patricia Chen, a reporter from the local news station. "I'd like to interview you about what happened," she said. "If you're willing," Riley hesitated. She didn't want attention. She just wanted to fix her diner and move on. But Vincent touched her arm. "Tell your story," he said. "Let people know what's happening in this neighborhood. Let them know what you did." So Riley agreed to a short interview. She told the reporter about the diner, about the gang, about what had happened. She didn't try to make herself sound like a hero. She just told the truth. The story aired that evening. Riley watched it at home with Tasha, and it felt strange seeing herself on TV, standing in front of her damaged diner, talking about community and standing up to threats. Her phone started ringing almost immediately. Friends she hadn't talked to in years, former soldiers from her unit, people she didn't even know calling to offer support. Her social media accounts, which she barely used, were suddenly flooded with messages. By the next morning, something unexpected had happened. Someone had started a fundraising page online. Riley didn't even know who at first. It turned out to be one of Vincent's friends, a retired teacher who knew how to use the internet better than most people half her age. The goal was set at $10,000 to help repair the diner. Within 6 hours, it had raised twice that. Messages poured in from across the country. Veterans sending money, people who had seen the news story, community organizations offering help. A construction company from downtown called and offered to do the repairs at cost. Riley sat at her kitchen table reading message after message from strangers and cried again. But this time they weren't tears of despair. Tasha came and sat next to her, reading over her shoulder. "Mom, look at this one. This guy says you inspired him to stand up to bullies at his work. And this lady says she's a veteran too and she knows how hard it is to start over," Keisha added, reading from her own phone. She had come over as soon as she saw the fundraiser taking off. But then Riley's phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. When she answered, the voice on the other end made her blood run cold. "You made a big mistake," the man said. His voice was older than Snake's, harder. "You think you won? This isn't over. Not even close. My little brother is sitting in jail because of you. And trust me, you're going to wish you had just paid the money." The line went dead. Riley sat there, phone still pressed to her ear, feeling all the hope from the last few hours drain away. She looked at Tasha's excited face, at Keisha's proud smile, and realized something terrible. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning, and this time she might not be able to protect everyone. Riley reported the threatening phone call to the police immediately. They traced the number to a burner phone, untraceable. The detective assigned to her case, a tired-looking man named Officer Brooks, told her they would increase patrols around her house and the diner. But Riley could read between the lines. They couldn't protect her 24/7. That night, Riley barely slept again. Every sound made her jump. Every car that drove past her house made her get up and look out the window. She kept her old military knife in the nightstand drawer, and she hated that she felt like she needed it. The next morning, Keisha came over early. She took one look at Riley's face and knew she hadn't slept. "We need to talk about this," Keisha said, pouring them both coffee. "What's there to talk about?" "Some gangster threatened me. The police can't do anything until he actually does something. And I'm supposed to just wait around for that to happen? Riley's voice was sharper than she intended. No, Keisha said firmly. You're supposed to be smart about this. You're a trained soldier, Riley, so am I. We've handled worse than some street gang. But we need a plan. Riley knew she was right. Reacting out of fear wouldn't help anyone. She needed to think tactically, the way she had been trained. Over the next few days, a pattern emerged. Men in cars would drive slowly past the diner. They never stopped, never did anything illegal, but the message was clear. We're watching you. Someone spray-painted threats on the boarded-up window one night. The police took a report but couldn't do much about it. Tasha started having nightmares. Riley would wake up to hear her daughter crying in the next room, and it broke her heart. This wasn't the life she wanted for her kid. She had survived war zones overseas so that Tasha could grow up safe. And now danger had followed them home anyway. The fundraiser kept growing. They had raised almost $30,000. The construction company was ready to start repairs. But Riley found herself wondering if she should even reopen. What if the gang came back? What if next time they hurt someone? What if they hurt Tasha? Vincent showed up at her house one afternoon. He didn't call first, just knocked on the door with a paper bag in his hand. I brought lunch, he said. We need to talk. They sat at Riley's kitchen table eating sandwiches while Tasha was at school. Vincent didn't waste time with small talk. You're thinking about giving up, he said. It wasn't a question, Riley sighed. How can I not? Every day I keep that diner open, I'm putting people at risk. My daughter at risk. Is it worth it? That's exactly what they want you to think, Vincent said. That's how people like them win. They make you so scared that you give up without them having to do anything. I'm not scared for myself, Riley said quietly. I'm scared for everyone else, Vincent nodded. I know that's what makes you a good person. But let me tell you something. I've lived in this neighborhood for 43 years. I've watched it go downhill. Watched good people leave, watched businesses close. You know what that does to a community? It kills hope. Little by little, people stop believing things can get better. He leaned forward. Then you came back. You opened that diner. You hired local kids. You fed veterans for free. You showed people that someone still cared about this neighborhood. And then when those thugs came in, you stood up. You protected people. You showed everyone that we don't have to be afraid. Riley felt tears stinging her eyes. But what if I can't protect everyone? What if someone gets hurt because of me? What if someone gets hurt because you weren't there? Vincent countered. Riley, you're not responsible for what bad people choose to do, but you are responsible for your own choices. And giving up? That's not who you are. After Vincent left, Riley sat alone for a long time thinking. She realized he was right. She had spent 20 years in the military fighting for people she had never met, in countries she had barely heard of before deployment. How could she give up now, fighting for her own community, for her grandmother's dream, for her daughter's future? She needed to do something different, though. Running and hiding wouldn't work. Neither would just waiting for the next attack. She needed to change the game entirely. That's when the idea came to her. It was risky. Maybe crazy, but it might be the only way forward. She called Officer Brooks and explained what she wanted to do. He was quiet for a long moment after she finished. That's either really brave or really stupid, he finally said. Probably both, Riley admitted. But will you help? He agreed with conditions, and he had some ideas of his own. 2 days later, Riley did something that surprised everyone. She reached out through community connections and asked for a meeting with the man who had threatened her. Snake's older brother, the real power behind the Vipers. His name was Devin, and he had just gotten out of prison 3 months ago. People thought she was insane. Keisha tried to talk her out of it. Tasha begged her not to go, but Riley was determined. The meeting would be in neutral territory at the community center, with witnesses present including Officer Brooks, Vincent, and several community leaders. The day of the meeting, Riley dressed carefully, not in her usual restaurant clothes, but not threatening either. She wanted to look like what she was, a business owner and a veteran, someone to be taken seriously. Devin showed up with 2 guys flanking him. He was taller than Snake, older, with prison tattoos visible on his neck and arms. His eyes were hard and calculating. This wasn't some kid playing tough. This was someone who had lived a hard life and made hard choices. They sat across from each other at a conference table. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. You've got guts, I'll give you that, Devin said. Most people would have run by now. I don't run, Riley said simply. Yeah, I heard about your military record. Impressive. But this isn't Iraq. This is my neighborhood. It's my neighborhood too, Riley replied. I grew up 3 blocks from my diner. This is home. Devin leaned back in his chair, studying her. So why am I here? You gonna try to convince me to leave you alone? Threaten me with cops? He glanced at Officer Brooks. We both know they can't do anything until I actually break the law. No, Riley said. I'm here to offer you a deal. That got his attention. A deal? Riley pulled out a folder she had prepared. Inside were printouts from the fundraiser, articles about the diner, and a business proposal she had spent 3 days writing. Your brother is looking at serious time. The prosecutor has him on armed assault, possession of an illegal firearm, destruction of property, and a list of other charges. He's 25. He could spend the next 10 years in prison. Devin's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. I also know that he's not the only young guy in your crew who's facing a dead end, Riley continued. Prison, death, or getting out of the game. Those are the only 3 options the way things are going. What's your point? Devin asked, his voice hard. My point is that I can offer a 4th option. Judge Theodore, the man your brother's guy pushed down in my diner. He's willing to work with the prosecutor on a deal. Community service instead of maximum prison time. But not just any community service, real work. At my diner. Devin actually laughed. You want my brother to work for you? After everything? I want to give him a chance, Riley said. And anyone else in your crew who wants a real job instead of a jail cell. I'm expanding. The fundraiser brought in enough money to not just repair the diner, but to make it bigger. I need kitchen staff, servers, cleaning crew. Real jobs with real pay. And I'll provide training. She pulled out another paper. I'm also starting a program. Self-defense classes, free for anyone in the community, especially women and elderly folks, taught by me and other veterans, so people can protect themselves. You're trying to take away my business, Devin said, but there was something different in his voice now. Curiosity, maybe. I'm trying to give people alternatives, Riley corrected. Look, you and I both know how this ends otherwise. Your brother goes to prison. Maybe you end up back inside too. More young guys get locked up or killed. The neighborhood gets worse. Nobody wins. And you think giving some guys jobs at a diner is going to change anything? I think giving people hope changes everything, Riley said. And I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to think about whether the life you're living is the life you want. Whether it's the life you want for your brother. The room was silent. Devin stared at the papers in front of him for a long time. Finally, he looked up at Riley. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the biggest fool. Like I said, probably both, Riley replied. Devin stood up. For a moment, Riley tensed, ready for anything, but he just picked up the folder and tucked it under his arm. I'll think about it, he said. Don't expect an answer right away. And this doesn't mean we're friends. Doesn't mean I trust you? I don't expect you to, Riley said. But I hope you'll give your brother a chance at something better. Devin left without another word, his guys following him out. The room exhaled collectively. Officer Brooks looked at Riley with something like admiration. That took guts. We'll see if it was smart, Riley said. 3 days passed with no word. Riley went ahead with the diner repairs anyway. The construction crew worked fast and the community kept showing up to help. The place was starting to look even better than before. Then on the 4th day, Riley's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered it, her heart pounding. It's Devin, we need to talk. Just you and me this time. Riley met Devin at a coffee shop across town, far from both their neighborhoods. She told Keisha where she was going and had Officer Brooks on speed dial, but she went alone like Devin requested. Trust had to start somewhere, even if it was fragile. Devin was already there when she arrived, sitting in a back corner booth. He looked tired, older than his 32 years. Riley slid into the seat across from him and waited. She had learned a long time ago that sometimes the best thing to do was let the other person talk first. I talked to my brother, Devin finally said. In jail, he's scared. Really scared. He's never been locked up before, and he's looking at years inside. He knows he messed up. Riley nodded but stayed quiet. I also talked to some of the other guys, the ones who work for me. Devin's jaw tightened. You know what most of them said? They'd take a real job if they could get one. Most of them have records. Nobody wants to hire them, so they work for me because it's the only option they got. It doesn't have to be. Riley said softly. Devin looked at her with something like frustration. You make it sound so simple, but you don't know what it's like growing up here. What it's like to have nothing. To watch your mom work 3 jobs and still not make rent. To see your little brother look up to you and realize you got nothing good to teach him. You're right, Riley said. I don't know what that's like. I had my grandmother. She kept me straight. But I do know what it's like to make hard choices, to feel like you're trapped, to wonder if you'll live to see tomorrow. She leaned forward. I also know what it's like to find a way out. The Army saved my life, Devin, gave me purpose, gave me skills, gave me a future. I'm not saying that's the answer for everyone, but I am saying there are answers. Different paths, if people are willing to take them. Devin was quiet for a long moment. What's the catch? You're not doing this out of the goodness of your heart. Nobody does. The catch is that it's real work, real expectations. Show up on time, work hard, treat customers with respect. No dealing, no gang activity while you're on my property. You mess up, you're out. Simple as that. And my brother? If he takes the deal, he'll work for me as part of his community service. Judge Theodore is willing to reduce his sentence if he completes the program successfully. After that, if he wants to stay on as a regular employee, he can. If he wants to go back to his old life, that's his choice. But at least he'll have had a chance at something different. Devin rubbed his face with both hands. He looked like a man carrying the weight of the world. You know, if I agree to this, I look weak to people, like I'm backing down. Or you look like someone who's smart enough to see an opportunity, strong enough to change direction when it makes sense. Riley held his gaze. Devin, I did 3 tours in Iraq. You know what I learned? The toughest fighters weren't the ones who never backed down. They were the ones who knew when to fight and when to find another way. The ones who survived were the ones who could adapt. He almost smiled at that. Almost. I need some guarantees, he said. My brother doesn't get treated different because of who he is. He gets a fair shot. Same with any of my guys who take you up on this. You have my word, Riley said. Military honor. I don't break my promises. Devin studied her face for a long time, looking for any sign of deception. Finally, he extended his hand across the table. Okay, let's try this. But if you burn my brother, if you use this to make yourself look good and then throw him away, we're going to have problems. Riley shook his hand. His grip was firm, testing her. She matched it. I don't throw people away. That's not who I am. The next 2 weeks were intense. Snake, whose real name was actually Terrell, took the plea deal. He started working at the diner the day after his release, and Riley could see the fear and anger in his eyes. He didn't want to be there. He thought she had humiliated him. Riley put him in the kitchen, working under Keisha's supervision. Keisha didn't go easy on him. She worked him hard, teaching him to prep vegetables, clean equipment, follow recipes. Terrell complained constantly at first, dragging his feet, doing the bare minimum. But Keisha was patient. She had worked with difficult soldiers before. She knew how to push without breaking someone. And slowly, gradually, something shifted. Terrell started showing up on time, started asking questions about how to make things right, started taking pride in doing a good job. 3 other young men from Devin's crew also applied for jobs. Riley interviewed them personally, made it clear what she expected, and hired 2 of them. One lasted 3 days before he stopped showing up. But the other one, a 19-year-old named Chris, took to the work immediately. He had a natural charm with customers and learned fast. The diner reopened 6 weeks after the attack. The place looked beautiful. New tables and chairs, fresh paint, updated equipment. But more than that, there was a different energy in the space. People came not just for the food, but to be part of something, to support what Riley was building. The free self-defense classes started that same week. Riley taught them herself every Saturday morning, with help from Keisha and 2 other veterans from the community. 20 people showed up the first week, 30 the second week. By the 4th week, they had to split into 2 sessions to fit everyone. Riley taught basic awareness, how to protect yourself, how to get away from danger. She made it practical and accessible. And she watched elderly women and teenage girls and middle-aged men all gain confidence with each class. They stood taller, walked with more certainty. That was worth more than any amount of money. Tasha came to watch sometimes, and Riley could see the pride in her daughter's eyes. The nightmares had mostly stopped. Tasha was smiling again, joking with the new employees, doing her homework in corner booths like she used to. 2 months after the reopening, Riley was closing up one evening when Terrell asked to talk to her privately. She tensed for a moment, old instincts firing, but his body language wasn't threatening. He looked nervous. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said, not quite meeting her eyes, "for giving me this chance. I know I didn't deserve it. I know I was a punk when I came in here that night." "You were scared and trying to look tough," Riley said gently. "I've seen it before. My brother told me you could have let me rot in jail, that you didn't have to offer me anything, and I've been thinking about that a lot." Terrell finally looked at her. "Nobody ever gave me a real chance before. Like a real job where someone believed I could do something good. It's different than I thought it would be." "Different how?" Riley asked. "I don't know. It feels good, I guess. Making food people like. Having customers thank me when they leave. Having money I earned, not money I took from someone." He shrugged, looking young and uncertain. "My mom came in for dinner last week. She cried because I was working here. Because she was proud of me. I don't think she's been proud of me since I was like 10 years old." Riley felt her throat tighten with emotion. "You should be proud of yourself too. You're doing the hard work of changing. That takes more courage than anything else." After Terrell left, Riley stood in her quiet diner, looking around at everything she had built. The photos on the walls included new ones now. Pictures of the reopening, photos of the self-defense classes, a framed article from the local paper about community resilience. Her phone buzzed. A text from Devon, just 3 words, "Thank you." Means everything. Riley smiled and typed back, "Thank you for giving them a chance." She thought about her grandmother, about Big Mama Louise, who had taught her to cook and to care about people, about the promise she had made at that funeral. She had wanted to create a place where people felt at home, where they felt safe, where they felt like they mattered. The diner had been destroyed and rebuilt. But in the rebuilding, it had become something more than just a restaurant. It had become proof that change was possible, that people could choose different paths, that communities could heal when someone was willing to take the first step. Riley locked up and walked to her car, breathing in the cool evening air. The neighborhood still had problems. There was still poverty, still crime, still struggles she couldn't fix with fried chicken and cornbread. But there was also hope now. And sometimes hope was enough to start with. As she drove home, she passed the spot where gang tags used to cover the walls. Someone had painted over them with a mural, beautiful colors, images of the neighborhood, words that said, "We rise together." Riley didn't know who had painted it, but she knew it meant something. The same way her diner meant something. The same way every small act of courage and kindness meant something. She had spent 20 years fighting wars overseas. But this, right here in her own neighborhood, protecting her community and giving people chances to be better, this was the most important mission she had ever had, and she was just getting started. When Riley got home, Tasha was at the kitchen table doing homework. She looked up and smiled. "How was work, Mom?" "Good," Riley said, kissing the top of her daughter's head. Really good, and she meant it. Despite everything they had been through, despite the fear and the violence and the uncertainty, they had come out the other side, stronger, together, ready for whatever came next. That night, Riley slept better than she had in months. No nightmares, no jumping at sounds, just deep, peaceful sleep, because she knew something now that she hadn't known before. She had won, not by being the toughest fighter, not by refusing to back down, but by choosing to see people as more than their worst moments, by believing that change was possible, by having the courage to offer grace when it would have been easier to offer judgment. Her grandmother would have been proud, and that was all that really mattered.